People think that they can create this barrier between, okay, I want to feel love, I want to feel joy, but I don't want to feel my grief. I don't want to feel anger ever. That right there, you're not dampening out anger or grief. You're dampening out everything. The research from psychoneuroimmunology is showing us that if you can feel your emotions and if you can become more emotionally intelligent, you're going to have a longer, healthier life.
MJ Renshaw is the visionary and founder behind the Being Method. She's a breathwork facilitator, medium, and podcaster, known for her unique ability to merge science with wellness. Today, we're diving deep into her story, the power of feeling our emotions, and of course, breathwork. MJ, welcome to The Other Way.
Thank you so much for having me. On cue, my kids started fighting in the background. So if you can hear children, they're safe, they're with their dad, and they're probably going to cry and fight.
On brand. We have to keep it real.
My kids are screaming in the background.
We have to keep it real. You know, I love this because I think it's quite important to just integrate kids into our lives. You and I were talking about this briefly beforehand. I don't have kids yet, but I babysat my friend's kids for the first time on Saturday. Y'all, I have a newfound respect for mothers, especially working mothers. It is not easy. So kudos right there.
Yeah, I'm definitely a working mom.
It's a lot to juggle. We're definitely going to get into some of the motherhood stuff today, hopefully. But before we do, can you share 3 words that you would use to describe yourself?
Mm. Mm. That's one of them. That's one. Maybe we'll just do 3 sounds. And like a really loud scream.
Oh, that is original. I haven't gotten that yet. I think that's pretty good. That tells me
My
a lot.
father-in-law has this joke that he leaks sound, and I do too.
Ooh.
We're both very soundy, like everything has like a sound associated with it. So it's just there
Oh,
you go.
well,
There
I
you
go with
go.
the noises.
See?
Yeah. But there's something super powerful about that. I think that a lot of us struggle with releasing sound. I know that in yoga class, when they're like, oh, release like a groan or whatever's coming through, it can be really difficult to do that.
It's
So
hard to prompt because it's
Mm.
maybe you're not a groaner. Everybody makes different sounds at different times. It's self-regulating. It's a
Yeah.
normal thing. Any sound, humming, that vibration, it's sound medicine. It's going to stimulate your vagus nerve. I teach in the course that sound medicine isn't always bowls. It's like singing, it's chanting, but down to the cellular level, each cell in your body that is meant for different things is tuned to a different vibration. And I really believe that humans are so intuitive, even if they don't think they are. And like the noise that you're making, think about this noise that you're making when you get up off the ground and you kind of have a sore back from trying to run 5 kilometers under 20 minutes, not speaking from personal experience.
Of course
And
not.
you let out this he let out this noise that's like who's to say maybe that noise was at the exact resonance of my low back QL, and it needed that little like noise, sound, vibration, healing to get up. I like to think about those things that are very unscientific, but also I'm just like, yeah, I just did that intuitive. I just sound healed myself intuitively. Maybe.
I love that. But it is true. And I will hyperlink this for folks tuning in, but I have read research articles really covering like the power of humming and how that stimulates your vagus nerve. Elisa Epel talks about this. She wrote the book, The Telomere Effect, and she has another one.
I love her.
Oh, she's so good. So good. And on her retreat that I went on in 2024, she talked about the power of humming. So I mean, there's research on this. I think it's so true. And Chinese medicine talks about if you sigh a lot, a person that feels prompted to sigh a lot, almost like trying to release that stress and that anxiety, that's a sign of liver congestion. I love it. We're going to start with sounds from now on. People are going to have to themselves like that. Anyway, So, before I take us away in that direction, I want to hear your story. You have such an interesting background, MJ, because you are an energy healer, you're a medium, a breathwork facilitator, and you are the founder of the Being Method. You're also soon to be an author, which we're going to get into that. But I know you've had an incredible evolution, both professionally and personally. Could you share a bit of your journey? Because you chose to leave your career path as an osteopath to pursue this work. And this work is very much at the intersection of spirituality and science. And it's just so fascinating how you're starting to merge some of those things. So take us back, walk us through how you got here.
Yes, I think I've just been ping-ponging between those 2 worlds my whole life as a child, like, loving the occult. My dad was a really big conspiracy theorist. There was a lot of late night History Channel stuff going on. If anybody's ever watched Gaia's what is that show? Ancestry whatever. The one that's always Egypt, aliens, they made batteries. That stuff has been around like, I love it. And then also science. I love science. So, when I went to university, I chose to study philosophy and literature. I love poems. My mom used to joke and be like, "Yeah, she went to university for poems." And I was like, "Kind of, actually." And from there, I planned on going to Cambridge to study with their philosophy of science program. So I
Mm.
went into philosophy. I really loved biomedical ethics. That was really interesting. So I loved studying, getting deeper into the neuroscience and getting deeper into the actual medical ethics with a philosophy kind of understanding. So it just really blends that, not so much spirituality, but theory with physics, theory with science, that kind of world. I've always loved it. I've never been like a hard science person. My brain does not work that way, but I do love the thought processes that can come with science. I think at its core, scientists are very creative people, right? Obviously, no one's going to find a DNA strand without being a little kooky.
Mhm.
But I did not have it in me to really thrive in science at the high level. And then my dad got really sick. Long story longer, I lost my big brother. My dad ended up relapsing. Like, it was a mess. Everything was crumbling around me. I ended up moving home to be closer to my dad, not going to Cambridge for my dream of doing their philosophy of science program. And my dad ended up committing suicide. Oh my God. It was
Oh
it
my god.
sucked so bad. Anyone who's lost a parent, it sucks. I'm so sorry. Anybody who's lost a parent to suicide, it really sucked. I had already lost my brother, and I just honestly, I wasn't even capable to do anything for a while. So if anybody is in this place where they're just like, I don't have it in me. I get it. I did not have it in me. I worked at a coffee shop for probably like 3 or 4 years, just not wanting to do anything. My mom tried
Yeah.
to push me into another master's to do the digital marketing thing. I think I ended up going to 3 lectures, which actually helped me build my course. But I didn't graduate. Then I ended up doing a postgrad in osteopathy. So they accepted me based off the interview, which was great. I
And what
did
is
4
osteopathy for people who don't
yeah,
know?
yeah. So similar to being a chiropractor, but we treat differently. The original chiropractor was actually in school to be he dropped
Mhm.
out of osteopathy school and said, "You know what? I don't want to work on the cranium as much." So cranial sacral therapy is from osteopathy. He said, "I don't want to work on the organs as much. I just want to go right to the spine. I feel like a lot of things are going wrong with the spine, and I want to go right down to the deep subluxing level." That's a chiropractor. That's their philosophy, right? Osteopaths are a little bit more holistic in their anatomy, I'll say. There's cranial sacral, and a lot of osteopaths are they can be very woo-woo. The school that I was in, it's a 5-year post-grad. You come out the other end working like a
Wow.
chiropractor or an osteopath, right? Yeah, I got to the end. I was probably 4 months, close to 4 months to graduation, and I was slowly backing out the door because I loved it. I loved the philosophy of it again, but it just didn't light me up.
Mm.
It just didn't light me up. It just wasn't for me. And there's other people I know totally lights them up. I've seen my osteopath for 10 years and he's good. Like, but it just wasn't for me. That's when I was like, okay, I have this chance right now. Everyone's mad at me because I dropped out of school, but I have this chance right now to try something. And I'm going to try it because I'm in my late 20s and I'm almost 30. If I fail, I can always go back to a 9 to 5, or I can go back to doing whatever I wanted to do. So that's when I started the Being Method, which for me was an intersection of science and spirituality.
Mm.
And that's That's the story. That's my story.
First of all, what is your human design? Do you know?
Oh, projector. Yeah.
Projector? Oh, yeah, represent. Do you know your numbers? I don't know what the numbers mean. Were you 5?
5-1, 5-1, 5-1. I think
And
it's the 5-1. The one that
interesting.
everybody gets really drawn into and then they hate, whatever that is.
Great. That's a great projection.
I know. When they told me,
Oh
I
my
was like,
god.
yes, that makes sense.
Projectors
Um,
have it rough sometimes, I think.
yeah, well, society is not built for
Yeah.
a projector.
Well,
Um,
we're moving in that direction, though. That's good. It's amazing to hear your story because it sounds like you were fearlessly pivoting pretty early on in your life. I feel like a lot of people wait until their late 20s or early 30s to make the leap. That was a bit of my story, but it's amazing to just hear you going after it. I feel people don't give people who walk away from things enough credit because it is actually quite difficult to invest in something, to start something, to say, okay, this is my direction, and then turn away from it. What was that journey like for you? Because a lot of people struggle with the notion of experimenting, leaving things half finished,
mhm.
trial and error. It's not something that people are very comfortable with.
I should have left year 1, and I knew it, and I wasn't listening. I kept trying to push myself, trying to be like, "You can do this." It wasn't my dream. Yeah. I just honestly, I just got sicker and sicker. I didn't have a period for years. My hair was falling out by the end. My car kept breaking down. Like, it was like every single atom in my body and in the guides around me kept being like, and I
Mm.
finally started listening. Like, I just remember the moment I was living with Ian at the time, and he was only my boyfriend, and I was like, crying, being like, "I'm so sorry you moved in with someone who you thought was gonna have a stable job in a short period of time, but I'm actually going to drop out and be crazy for a bit." And he was just like, "You gotta do what you gotta do, like, your mental health is the most important thing." And my physical health, like, we wanted kids, and I was technically infertile. So, it was one of the best decisions I ever made in my life, and I just think, we don't know, no, but pretend you only had one life. That's the thing that people at the end of their life commonly say. I should have just done what I freaking wanted to do. All these made up rules and made up limitations. Like, we make up a lot of limitations for ourselves. There are very real ones, but we don't need to make up more, right? So I think getting clear on like, why can't I do that? Why do I think that? Because I hear people all the time give me absolute bull shit reasons. Like, I just straight up. And I don't mean that in a mean way, but I'm like, you're that's not even real.
Yeah.
And it's I get it because I had them and I still have them, right? You have to like find them, identify them, and do whatever work fills you up to kind of break down those walls that you have within yourself. But if anyone's listening, totally doable.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you mentioned that. And I didn't hear you say this exactly, but in so many words, you were sharing that it was a difficult transition. I think that a lot of people expect that, oh, taking that leap of faith, leaving the relationship, leaving the job, dropping out of school, walking away from something that you invested a lot of time with, that it's going to feel so right and you're going to feel so confident. But I almost feel like that in a way is an illusion. I'm hearing you say that it was a really shaky time and almost like a rock bottom that forced you to leave at that point because your health was at its lowest,
Yeah.
but you knew this so much earlier on, yet you didn't listen to it up until a couple of years in. That's
Yeah.
wild. And I think that's a
Yeah.
really common story.
I think the hardest part was for me was just other people. Like, still to this
Mm.
day, people will be like, "Oh, what a waste." And I'm like, "A
To
waste of
this day?
what?" Oh, yeah. People get really upset to hear it. Cool. So late in, they're like, "Why didn't you
Yeah.
just finish it?" And it was like, "'Cause I was so sick." Like, I felt so bad. I didn't wanna be there for another 4 months. And I think this is the thing that society is so anti-quit. But you know what? Like, I think there's different things of hard. And I do hard things all the time where I feel like that push is good. Like, I'm pushing my limitations in a really good way. It feels good. Am I gonna run on a broken ankle? No, not a good push for me. Like, I don't want to push myself to the point where I'm burning out or my life is getting worse. Do I want to push the limitations of what I think is possible? Write a book or come on this podcast? Yes, of course I wanna do that. I'll just say the hardest thing for me was other people understanding. My mom did not understand at all. She was so sad, mad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just had to deal with it. Like, at some point, you can't be a 30-year-old woman and be like, "You're right. I'll just do what you want me to do." I had to be like, "Sorry, I have to do this. It's just I have to do what I wanna do."
And it's your life. It's your life at the end of the day, and I
Yeah,
think
mom.
that it
My life. I hope
so
he's listening.
eloquently
Just
yeah.
kidding.
Sorry, mom.
We're
Sorry.
good
My
now, we're
mom's the
good.
same way. My
We're
mom's the same I mean, my dad is like this. So I left a decade-long career at Microsoft. I had come from an immigrant background. I paid my way through college, took out loans, and I was looking for stability my entire life, and I got that, built up that career, and then I walked away to study Chinese medicine, which I later walked away from as well midway through, 2-year mark. Yes, yep, the graduate degree. Leaving Microsoft was one thing. I got so much pushback from my dad. He really didn't consider it like a real school. He was shocked as to why I would leave my thriving career in tech to do this. And then to leave that was another really difficult decision as well. But at the end of the day, it's my life, but it wasn't easy, and I think that's the misconception that I love that you're breaking for people right now, which is that it actually will be very difficult to turn away from the people who have raised you and just say, "I hear you. I am taking in what you're saying, but I'm going to choose not to listen to that because I know what's right for me," and to create your own path, and I think that's really courageous. That notion of feeling super confident when you're doing that isn't realistic. The confidence comes later, right?
Oh, yeah, I was scared doing everything, launching my first course, coming on podcast. Like, who's the artist who has that quote? Like, everything I've done with fear. It's
Yeah.
just so and this ties us back to emotions in the book so well. If I, like, just
Mhm.
shamelessly bring my book in here, where it's talking about how, emotions are good. There's no good or bad ones. Like, I feel like a lot of us will feel fear and think, "Oh, I can't do that thing because I'm having fear." No, 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 no. The whole point is to do it with the fear. You gotta turn to the fear and be like, "Thank you. I hear you. I see you. Now we're gonna do it anyways," you know? And it's just I think when you change your mindset to being able to understand that you're going to experience all the emotions until you die, like, you're gonna experience grief, sadness, anxiety, stress, da 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 da. Da. I'm not even naming emotions at this point, but you're going to experience the full range of life, hopefully, if you open yourself up to it, and that's okay. And you can just do all the things anyways. And whether you stay at the safe 9 to 5 that you hate or you leave your job, guess what? You're still going to feel all the emotion. If you stay at the 9 to 5, you're still going to feel fear. It's not like you're saving yourself from that, feeling the emotions.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, we gotta talk about this. So, you have an incredible book coming out called How to Cry, which I'm so pumped about, and I love what you're saying right now because what I'm hearing you kinda say is that there's this notion of almost like not having a comfort zone. Rather than being like, okay, this is the comfort zone of what emotions are welcome. These are the ones that are not. And we spend our entire lives trying to fix or remove the emotions. It's like, how do we welcome them in and work with them? Is that kind of the vibe that I'm getting here?
Absolutely. And I think for me, it's not so much, I think people think that they can create this barrier between, okay, here's the one I want to feel. I want to feel love. I want to feel joy. I want to feel static. I want to feel connected, oneness with everybody. But I don't want to feel my grief. I don't want to feel anger ever. I'm actually above anger. And that right there, you're actually not dampening out anger or grief. You're dampening out everything. You're not going to feel a static love oneness with everybody if you don't let yourself feel sadness and anger and shame.
Hmm.
You will only ever damp out all the emotions and be one of those numb people. That's it. So if you're someone who can this is the importance of shadow work. Like, if you can learn to dial up the notch. That you don't have to go 1 to 100 because that's going to be crazy dysregulating. But if you can dial the notch up a little bit, can I explore my grief in my body? Can I explore my anger a little bit? Can I start to feel these things, which I was taught by society was wrong. I was conditioned as a kid not to feel them because they were labeled wrong. Can I start to explore allowing myself to feel this? And is that okay? I think one is like jealousy. I hear so many people
I
being
know
like,
what you
I'm not a
mean.
jealous person. I am. Oh, I'm jealous. And
Me too. Me too.
yeah, I'm so
Yes.
jealous.
Okay.
And, like,
My
I think
mom's not. Love you, mom, but I don't believe that. I love you though.
no, I think, first of all, jealousy is hot 'Cause
Mm.
it can be really healthy, but I think we're only showed jealousy in toxic ways of going through someone's phone or controlling someone. You can say that you're jealous in a way that doesn't control anybody. And if someone came
Mhm.
to me and said, "Oh, I'm feeling so jealous," I'm not gonna control you or change your behavior, but I would be like, "Oh, okay." I think there's a way for us to allow even hard emotions, even emotions that we might think come with shame or might think doesn't mean we're spiritually evolved or whatever. There's a way for us to have them. And the research that's coming out from psychoneuroimmunology is showing us that if you can feel your emotions and if you can become more emotionally intelligent, meaning you know how to recognize emotions, you know how to communicate with them, you know how to hold space for other people's emotions, you're going to have a longer life, a healthier life, a better life in pretty much every aspect that you can possibly imagine. Like we know now, if you don't process your grief, cancer. If you don't process your anger, stroke and heart attack. Like we are looking at the research and it's showing us exactly where autoimmune conditions are coming from. And a lot of the core of these things can be emotional.
Mic drop 100%. And I'm a huge meditator. I came back from a silent retreat earlier last month, and I think what you're saying is just so powerful and actually ties back to so many of the Eastern philosophies that any of these emotions are welcome. It's how we respond to them that we can control. We can't control the outside circumstances. We can't even control what emotions come up, but we can control how we respond to them. I do want to bring in the person that's like listening to this, maybe even anxious as they're listening to this, or perhaps dealing with a breakup and dealing with these tough emotions, and they're hearing us speak, but also saying, okay, well, it's easy for me to feel my happiness or maybe even feel a bit of discomfort or anxiousness, but I can't imagine how do I cope with something that comes up when it's really acute. What are some of the techniques that we should be looking at? What are some of the tools that we should be considering when it comes to feeling these emotions and working with them versus just moving away from them?
Everybody has their own coping mechanisms. Some people's are labeled more healthy than others, but there's no shame in the game. If you
Mhm.
cannot handle reality right now, pick coping mechanisms that will help you and hopefully just try to pick the ones that won't be long term really hard to let go of, like smoking or drinking heavily or things like that, right? Like just try to pick ones that are going to be like if you got to zone out on Netflix for a couple of days, zone out on Netflix. I just think sometimes we can shame people too much when they're just like when life is too much. And if you like, I'm all for eating junk food and watching TV if you need to do that. I think those coping mechanisms are real. And I also think that you can be a very spiritually evolved person and just do that. And I think it's fine. And then when you're ready, I think there's this moment where we feel kind of sick of ourselves. I don't wanna be doing this. This doesn't feel good for me anymore. I was a smoker for 10 years. That's what going to University of Montreal will do to you. But there was a time where I was like, "I don't wanna do this anymore." This helped
Mm.
me at one point in time. It was a good coping mechanism, but now I feel like I've outgrown it. And taking those steps, learning to just pick a tool that helps you be in your body and helps you be present. For me, it's breath work. For someone else, it could be tapping, it could be chanting, it could be dancing. There's a million different very wonderful, healthy tools that can meditating, right? Like you mentioned, that's yours, that can help you get into your body and get
Mhm.
into the present moment. I think those would be the 2 things that I would look for in a tool. Do I feel in my body right now? And do I feel in the present moment? And does it feel fun? I think a lot of times with wellness, we just see someone doing something on Instagram, so we're like, "I'm gonna do it too," but it can be fun. I think breathwork's fun. That's what I would say is just pick a tool. I love breathwork. It's very easy to drop in. It doesn't take long. It's very easy to feel your emotions and let it out. I'm someone who really struggled to feel my emotions and know what they are, express them, and show them to someone else. So it's been life-giving for me to kind of tap into my body again and like really know her.
That embodiment piece kind of goes back to what you shared earlier, leaning towards versus leaning away when it is reasonable to handle and leveraging whatever tool it is that resonates with you. I have a bone to pick with breath work because for me, the breath work techniques that I'm often introduced to can actually be very stimulating. Like I'm
Mhm.
thinking Kundalini, breath of fire. I can't do that. I find that I'm more anxious, more riled up by the time I'm done with it. And I've heard you mention on your podcast that your approach is very different. So could you talk about your thoughts about the common techniques of breath work and how it many times can feel stimulating? Is that a common
Oh
complaint?
my
Like, what
god,
are your
yeah,
thoughts?
yes, you are not alone there. So, like, the way there's a lot of different names for breathworks and things and da da da. The way we've broken it down in the Being method is just by nervous system. Is it activating sympathetic or parasympathetic? That's it. We try to make it as simple as possible. So what you're talking about is sympathetic type breathwork styles.
Mhm.
So it would make you feel sympathetic and it would probably release cortisol in your body. This can be an amazing tool for people who want like that big release or even a small release. I don't do it for that long. Some people do it for like 2 hours and they re-experience their like birth or something. And it's like it can get really psychic. We don't teach that style. I really believe in gentle. I don't think that we need to go like balls to the walls to have a healing experience. You asked for what's different. So the difference in the Being method of the breathwork styles that we teach is that we teach them all. Most breathwork teachings that you will go to, you're going to learn one. We end up recertifying, I don't even know how many breathwork instructors because they've only learned how to do sympathetic breathing. And they want to work with different people who have anxiety, people who have high blood pressure, people who, have mental illnesses that don't let them breathe like that, people who are pregnant. So I think that the cool thing, not to plug my own course here, but like we do teach every single type of breath work. So you're also going to learn parasympathetic breathing and one that is less common, but really, really cool, especially for people with anxiety like you, would be apnea.
What does that look like?
Okay, I'll try not to go too deep into the nerdy science. So, essentially, some people have something that's called a low carbon dioxide intolerance. So, they are very intolerant to carbon dioxide building up in their body. The interesting thing about carbon dioxide, which is a gas cell transmitter, like a neurotransmitter, but gas, and not the kind that comes out of your butt. One day I'm going to be able to say that without making a fart joke, but your amygdala is very, very, very triggered by carbon dioxide. So you will start to feel fear and panic. Obviously, you were built this way because if you can't breathe, you want to feel fear and panic so that your body will do everything it can to get breath again. When people can't hold their breath on the exhale for a long period of time, you can almost diagnose them as someone as having an anxiety problem that's actually from the way they breathe. A lot of people, it's just because they breathe in a certain way, and they can breathe in that certain way just because they've somewhere along the line have not been taught to breathe properly. They might have something physical going on that makes them breathe that way, or they might have experienced a trauma in the past. Some people will have intolerance because they have like asthma or COPD or something going on. But there's a lot of people, like I was training for a marathon, did the test assuming that I would be like, I'm good, had one of the lowest scores. And they were like, are you anxious? And I was like, always. And then been caught in hyperventilation. This was me. I don't even think people understand how deep breathwork go. I feel
Mhm.
like when you go online, all you see is people like laying down with a pillow over their eyes, like crying. That's amazing because a lot of people don't cry and let out their emotions. But I'm obviously an anatomy and physiology nerd, and our respiratory system is something that's so underlooked and under exercised, and it can affect your entire body. It's so wild to me that you go to the doctor and they don't check out your, like, breath rate at all, even though we
Mm,
know by science that that can tell you whether someone's gonna have a heart attack in the next, like, 25 days, but they won't check it.
mm,
Hopefully, they
mm.
will in the future. But there's a lot of good quantifiable tests you can do to know whether your breathing is making a lot of your symptoms.
If you're somebody who has a very short exhale, lots of taking in of breath
Yes.
and
Yeah.
hyperventilating, they might be breathing incorrectly. It could be contributing to their anxieties.
It could be literally creating it. Like, think about it. What happens when you have a panic attack? How do you breathe?
I mean, very shallow breaths.
If anybody wants to go, don't do it now if you're driving. Don't do it now, period, because you have to listen to me for a little bit more. But if anybody wants to go deeper into it, just like Google or ChatGPT Bolt score, BOLT. Take your Bolt score at different times a day for 2 days. And if you're below 10, there's a good chance that your breathing might be giving you anxiety.
So if people are breathing this way and low key hyperventilating, what should we be doing about that?
Well, this is the cool thing about breath work because I really believe that you can go any route and it would help it. So, say you're someone
Right.
who's really been called to do the 2 hour long sympathetic holotropic breath work, that can help you, right? If you have an old trauma and you need to go in and really like reprogram that, that could probably help your breath rate. I don't have any
Mhm.
signs to back that, but it just feels true in my body. It's a hormetic stress, right? So it's like something that's stressful in the moment, like cold plunging or a hot sauna or a long run or exercise. But we know in the long run, it makes you more resilient. You're also going to release your emotions. You could practice, like you said, parasympathetic type breath work. You could do 10 minutes of a longer exhale every day. You could practice apneas if you're not pregnant, which is just really gentle breath works. It does not take long for someone to really increase their carbon dioxide intolerance. And basically what you're doing is telling your body, we can handle more carbon dioxide in our body, and your brain and your amygdala won't be as sensitive to it. So it's not going to be like alert, alert every 5 seconds in your brain, being like,
Mhm.
we don't have enough oxygen. It sounds counterintuitive, but the more you breathe, the less oxygen you have in your body.
I read the book, I think it's called Breath, honestly.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Great book. We should link it. It explains all of
so
this.
good,
But
so good. We're definitely gonna
James
hyperlink that.
Nestor, we love him.
So good, and he goes into all the science, which was just mind-blowing because it is counterintuitive to a lot of the things that I think we think. We're just like, "Oh, we need more oxygen, I can't breathe, that's why I'm hyperventilating," but by doing that, we're actually perhaps
Yeah.
causing some of
Yeah.
the
So
anxious
breathing
scenarios.
less, right? So don't breathe through your
Yeah.
mouth ever. He's a big proponent of mouth taping. The mouth taping thing is real. It's so good for you. Breathe only through your nose and trying gentle breath holds. I do it when I'm on a walk. I just do,
Mhm.
3 to 5 cycles of just holding my breath, seeing how many steps I can get. It doesn't take a lot to really train your body to deal with more carbon dioxide. And we think of carbon dioxide as like this waste material from our cells. It's not. It's amazing for you. It's a vasodilator. You're going to move your lymph around way more. You're going to get way more blood to your tissues. I could write a love story to carbon dioxide.
I don't think anyone's ever said that, but I love it. We'll put that as one of your quotes. We'll put that as one of your quotes. So, total pivot here, but I know that breath work is a huge part of your own personal practice. Dare I say spiritual practice as
Oh, yeah.
well? Yeah, so I would love to hear from you because I feel like the community is probably so curious about this. What does your spiritual practice look like today? I love asking this to a lot of guests that I have on that incline towards spirituality and consciousness because 30% of Americans identify as spiritual but not religious. And it's like this mishmash of experiences that constitutes being spiritual. We don't have the same organized religion aspect to it. And so I feel like people are so curious. What does your practice look like? How do you connect to the divine?
Yeah, of course. We're a big God family, but we're not
Mhm.
religious. Maybe my husband,
Okay.
when he's like trending towards Christian right now. He's exploring
All
it, but
right.
but I'm not. And for me, it just looks like getting into a regulated space. And a regulated space for me is connecting to, like you said, the divine, my idea of God. What is God for me? I picture an old man in the sky. I actually do. And I think God is just unconditional love and just patience and forgiveness and all the good parts of life. And I just want to be in that vibration. So anything that can get me connected there is what I love. And that could be anything. I'm a mom of two really young kids, so I'm not sitting down and doing breath work in the morning for 20 minutes, but we have our own little practices. Me and the kids do a little bit of breath work together. We might do some tapping together, depending on how they're feeling. Sometimes we read Marianne Williamson in the morning, just like a short little thing that has the day, like here's February 14th, and it has a little thing. And they like to read that with me or listen to me read that. But just like getting in touch with nature. I heard someone the other day say that there wasn't Buddha, Jesus, everybody who had immense spiritual experiences always had it in nature, always. And that's
Oh,
so
100%.
true.
That's
I
actually crazy. Yeah.
Yes, oh, it was always in nature. It was never in like an office. So I think for me, nature is a big, big part of my spirituality, just being.
Being Method, which I
Yeah.
love the name. I absolutely love the name, but I think that that is actually such a important insight, and to really reset and switch the pace at which we're operating and moving to start to connect to something bigger than ourselves. I think that vastness and that shift in perspective is something that a connection to the divine really helps support, but also going to places that facilitate that help us connect to the divine, which I
Yeah.
think is just so powerful,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
think it's just like we operate on frequency, and it's just choose what frequency you want to try to be in for the rest of the day. And if you don't choose, everything around you is going to choose for you. So
That
just choose one, and you do whatever you need to do to get there. Do you need to read the Bible for a bit every morning? Do you need to pray? Do you need to meditate? Do you need to do a little bit of tapping? Just remember, who am I? And where am I going? And what am I here to do? I'm an infinite being of love, and I'm here to love people. And I'm here to change the world. That's what I'm here for. And then all the like little stuff that you're resentment about, they had resentment about or were worried about, just drips away because you're like, actually, I'm an infinite being and I'm here to love everybody. So, but just get into that every morning.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. I must ask about your motherhood journey. You mentioned you're the mother of 2 children. I'm curious, how has your own self-identity shifted since becoming a mother?
Yeah. I think, maybe I'm like delusional, but I don't know if I had as big of an identity crisis as other people did, but that might just be my codependency. I really stepped into, and don't touch my babies. I went full Golem with
Mhm.
my kids. Maternal, what is it? Maternal instinct thing or whatever. I don't know what the term is, but
Oh, Gollum, oh
oh
my
yeah.
god.
Like I was like my mother-in-law would be like, "Can I hold them?" And I'd be like, "No." Now I'm like, "Take them, please." To be honest, I think this is where having a spiritual practice is amazing and having a certain mindset is amazing. I'd already been doing this stuff for a long time. So when postpartum came and basically ripped all my clothes off, threw up on me and slapped me in the face, I was like, "Okay. Okay. This is a little bit
Mm.
crazy, but it is what it is." And I think if anybody's there or they're about to have a baby and they're nervous about it, I'll just share this. So I hung on to this mantra and it really got me out of stuff was just, it's not forever. It's not. You think it's going to be forever and it's not. It's such a short period of time in your life. It really rocks you because it's so
Mm.
different. All of a sudden, you have to ask permission to shower, you know? Like, that's so different than not. And yeah, my friends have done really beautiful things for me. Like, when I had my second, they all wrote me letters. So
Ugh,
every month, I would open, like, on a full moon, like a letter from another woman who either had kids or didn't. And it was just like, oh my God. At your baby shower, have them write you letters. Do not get crap. Get, get the letters.
that is such a good idea. I know
It's
that a
so
lot of women, they're doing not just baby showers, but also maiden to mother transition
yes,
ceremonies to kind of
yes.
celebrate
Mother's
that.
blessings.
Yes.
I just did one and I brought my sound bowls. I had never played them before in my whole friend's family. I was like, "Okay, shh, listen now."
Listen to this beautiful
Yeah.
symphony that I'm
Bong.
Oh, that's
I got
beautiful.
ChatGPT to write us a prayer.
Oh god, I love it.
It
I
was
love it.
beautiful.
All the uses. I definitely frequently use that. But I love what you say about time, and I actually think this goes full circle back to what you were talking about with being able to sit with our emotions, leveraging the tools, some of the tools that you talked about, may it be breath work or anything else, to allow us to sit with our emotions, because that helps us get that perspective. Like
Mm.
when we're thinking about the period of postpartum or, oh my gosh, the next couple of years of my life, like, what are they going to look like? That anticipation creates an emotional state with us of fear and whatever else comes up, or maybe if you are postpartum and dealing with like postpartum depression or some of the feelings of that transition, I think it's the being so stuck in the feeling itself and not having that perspective that this is temporary that creates that, as Buddha would call, second arrow, right? There's the
Yes.
depression itself, there's the
And
anxiety,
then the
and then there's the
suffering we create.
story, the suffering
Yes.
we create. And
And I
I think that's
also
so
wanna
powerful.
say it wasn't a mantra that, like, got me out of it. I was diagnosed with postpartum OCD with my first,
Wow.
so,
Okay.
no shame in reaching out and getting help. I worked with a therapist and did exposure therapy. It helped me so much, but yeah, wild things can come up, but I think having a grounding spiritual practice, something that's for you, It's gonna look different when you're in postpartum. If you're like, "I have to do my hour-long meditation," I don't know if that's gonna work, but if you can figure out something, like I did a shorter breath work, I started doing tapping, anything, can help you through those transitions because this is life. Life is
Yeah.
that is gonna throw you curveballs. No one's gonna get out the other end being like, "Well, everything went according to plan." Friend of mine was like, "If you wanna really prepare for childhood," and I think this also just goes for entrepreneurship or just marriage or life in general. She was like, "Take a piece of paper, write down your entire plan, then crumble it up, throw it on fire, and throw it in the garbage." That's great advice, and actually, that's exactly what happens. Every day I plan out our day, and then I'm like, "And it's noon, and we are already off schedule."
I literally wrote down here the word surrender because I was going to
Yeah.
ask you about it. And you just literally segued right into it. As somebody who struggled with some OCD tendencies, do you feel like motherhood has helped you lean into surrender a bit more than you had prior to becoming a mother?
Yes. Yeah, I think it's a big if anybody has anxiety, how do we try to cope with it? A lot of people will try to control things.
Yeah.
We wanna control our environment, we wanna control ourselves, control people around us. It's not in an unloving way, it's just how we can create predictability. We have less things to feel anxious about. I always joke like I'm not an A type, but my husband kinda sat me down the other day and he was like, "You are an A type." But I'm not in a sense where like things have to go a certain way. I'm just driven and I didn't know that was part of the definition. So I'm A type in the sense that I'm very driven, but I'm not A type in the sense where I wanna control it or things have to go according to plan anymore. I think I'm a lot more like really easygoing. And the beautiful part about that is that's where the magic of life happens. Am
Yeah.
I gonna create a better plan for my day than God? No. You know what I mean? So even when things go wrong, I'm always like, "Ooh, this was a this was a beautiful teaching," or "I really, got something from that," or "It is what it is," you know what I mean? Like, it was meant to be. The burnt toast theory where it's even if something goes wrong, what did it protect you from? It's helped me just live in the present moment. 'Cause you just
Mhm.
have to pivot 100,000,000 times a day. I think my husband cleaned up poo off of our couch downstairs last night. I didn't even know. Like, chaos
Thank
all the
you for that.
time. Yeah, chaos all the time.
MJ, I could chat with you for hours, but we're actually coming up on time. So I would love for you to please share with our audience, where can people find you? Where can they find your book? I know folks are going to want to get more, so please.
And the best place is Instagram at Being Method Breathwork. That's where we are. The book is not published yet. It's gonna be published soon. Kelly Rutherford is doing the foreword right now, and I'm so excited. I'm just excited for people to read it, and I'm just excited to be an author. It's been like a lifelong dream of mine. But if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see when the book is released, and that's it.
Congratulations. That is a lot of work. I'm so excited to read it. Seriously.
And if anybody wants to chat, my DMs are open.
Thank you so much for tuning into The Other Way. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a 5-star review. It really helps the podcast grow, and I'm ever so grateful. If you want to stay connected, you can find information on how in our show notes. And finally, if you're curious about inflow and want free resources around cyclical living or moon cycles, check out inflowplanner.com. And of course, for all my listeners, you can use the code podcast10 for 10% off any purchase. All right, that's all for today. See you next time.